Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now, let the stories begin. I'm so excited. I love this. Another day to celebrate another amazing person. And you know, I'm going to say it, it's going to rock your world. And because the minute I met Louise, it rocked my world. And Louise, you continue to rock my world. I can't explain it. Yeah, but really, do you know that? You know, you just show up and rock people's worlds.
I love it. Either that or it's an earthquake and you have to leave somewhere else. I don't know. One of the two.
Well, I think everybody's in for a treat because you're going to soon see that this woman that's off the charts brilliant has done things globally that I don't know that I've ever met another human being that's touched as many lives and continues to find ways to make impact in our world. But Louise Guido is with us today. And, you know, Louise, I could read your bio, but it's kind of like, it doesn't even touch all that you've done. And I mean, I know you have a couple companies, you've continued to create companies, but what I've gained and learned from you is that everything you're doing really wraps around the impact you want to make globally on social change. And, you know, would you just take a few minutes and just kind of give us like, what does that really mean? And what's been the driving force behind all these amazing companies and experiences you've had?
Great. Well, thank you, Holly. This is fun. I think that when we start out in life, if you're like I was, you don't really know what you want to do. And I grew up in an age, I'm sort of a baby boomer person where, you know, we didn't have technology. Nobody had really major skills unless you were going to be a doctor, right? So you sort of go to school, university, you learn some basic skills, you know, how to communicate, maybe how to write. And then you get out and you're wondering, now what? And so for me, I didn't ever think I was all that smart. I didn't come from a very well-to-do family. We were just sort of getting along trying to survive. And I think that I always looked at the world as if, well, there must be people just like me out there. So later on in life, as I became more experienced and I had some really super cool experiences, worked in the magazine business as an advertising salesperson, started my own publication, traveled around the world. I kept thinking, well, there's got to be people that used to be like me, meaning, right? They, you know, and my mother used to have a great line. I love my mother, and she was, old school, and she used to come up with these amazing phrases and lines, and that captured, I think, what it is you want to learn in life. And I remember going back to being a young woman and not having my first job yet. And I said, well, I don't know, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to go about doing it. And she looked at me and she said, well, don't worry, honey. You can't fall off the floor. And I thought, well, okay. I didn't really know what that meant because I was a little bit too dumb. I didn't know if that was an insult or not. But later on in life, I definitely knew what she meant, meaning that you can't go anywhere but up. So why not? Oh. And I think in today's world, we want a path. I know certainly for millennials, they want a path. But you know what? I always felt that since I couldn't fall off the floor, might as well try everything and throw spaghetti at the wall. And I think that me doing that led me to believe in a lot of these developing countries that I now work in and in traveling around the world is that there are a lot of people that are just like me and were just like me and are just like me.
And I think that's what always keeps you. That's what I love about you. You know, you do these amazing things globally, and yet to sit here and be right here as though we're sitting on the couch having a cup of coffee. Louise, you're just always so humble, and you would never know, just to know that like Facebook, they just asked you to be a judge and then they've fallen in love with your product and now you're partnering with them. And like, there's so many kudos, but take us back. Okay. So you dropped in a little innuendo, my friend, that I want to know more about. Like every time we're together, I get to learn more about you, but go back to that starting a magazine publication. Take me on that journey of then and now. What was that about? And take us, I just want to hear more about where that brought you.
Sure. So I started out in the magazine business where I was an advertising space salesperson, and I worked for publications that are still around, which is nice, called House Beautiful magazine, Town and Country, and I was responsible to sell advertising space. Again, this is all before the internet, right? This is back in the 80s, and so I learned a lot. I was one of the first women to become to work for Forbes magazine, which is, you can imagine, financial, is all male dominated. And then I became the publisher of Art News magazine. And by that time, I was in the business probably around 10 years. And I thought, oh, I think I want to start my own. I had my own idea for a publication. So I did. And I started a magazine called Living Abroad. And the idea behind it is for expatriate executives, if they were going to relocate abroad for their companies, these guys and gals that work for IBM or Exxon, how do they know how to live abroad? Like, what to expect if you move your entire family to Beijing or Bangkok or Brussels or any of these countries and cities? So I put together a print publication, and we covered about 100 countries and different languages. And it was super successful. But at around the time, probably the late 90s, I started to see a shift in the business, where I had a lot of corporations buying my magazines, moving companies were buying the magazines, but the business was starting to really struggle. Advertising was drying up. You're just running a business and you're trying to figure out how to manage it. So one of my clients said to me, "Hey, Louise, you have all this content in the magazines. Can you put that on a website?" Now, this was in 1997, and, I think Google had barely come out yet. So my answer in life for everything in business is, the answer is always yes. Okay? The answer is always yes, unless, of course, it's a flight attendant, because a flight attendant asks you to move. So,
well, we already know those stories. That's another whole interview.
That's another one. But in terms of the business, I said to the client, yes, because I knew he was willing to pay for it. So basically, I turned my business upside down. I went from print to internet, web. I hired all kinds of programmers. I had no idea. And we converted our entire business, turned it on its head, and went from print to electronic, so to speak. And within 2 years or so, 2.5 years, I had 85 corporations as clients paying a subscription to basically a website that was called, Living Abroad. And you would click a button, just like you see a website today, and you'd search for whatever country you wanted to relocate to. And there was just loads and loads of information. And I sold that company in 2000. And it was a pretty exciting time. I'd worked on, Living Abroad for 10 years and ultimately sold it. So, it was quite exciting for me. It was a dream come true. And by then I had reached every dream I ever had. So I thought, oh, now what?
Yeah. Now what?
Now what? Now what do I do?
And that took you to, okay, wait, do you remember, and I have to go back to this, I'm having an aha moment. And I think it happened so quickly in a moment when we were together in San Antonio about 6 months ago. But do you remember when the summit of the eight, every 8 years, the presidents all get together. Right. And do you recall, I cannot believe the timing, but I started a company in Denver, Colorado, because the summit of the eight was going to be in Denver, Colorado in the late 90s. And so I started a company called Worldwide Etiquette. I marched down to the mayor's office and said, what are we doing to equip our city so that they are prepared to greet and ready to be able to entertain and give us great press with all the different countries that are going to be here? As simple as the etiquette, right? How to have menus. Right. I'm just having a hilarious moment because that company turned into helping train, especially IBM executives locally going out of Denver, how to give them the proper etiquette, most often for just business trips. Right. Mm-hmm. And never did I know that you and I, like your company and what you did was at such a scale. Louise, no wonder we're connected now.
Right. We're in the same sort of cultural, business as it were. Yeah.
And seeing the need, right? Knowing that there is a need. It's like, and I'm sorry, but I have to say this. We in the US have a propensity to just march over and expect everybody to cater to us, right? We expect every other culture to know exactly how to treat us. But when do we take the time to get equipped and be ready to serve them and show up in their country, right? Revering their etiquette, their ways. God, that's another whole conversation we could have, girlfriend.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was brought up in the age of, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So people asked me after I sold Living Abroad, how did I get along in all these various countries? I mean, I probably had visited, at least 80 countries. We had editors in 80 countries. We covered
Wow.
100. And people say, well, how did you get along if you didn't speak any other language? And I said, well, I learned please, thank you, and I'm really sorry in about 16 languages. And a lot of smiling, because smiling always got me out of trouble. That, oh, I'm so sorry. But I used to do a lot of business in Japan and in Hong Kong and then in mainland China. And I did it in Europe, every country in Europe and Eastern Europe at the time. And it was pretty crazy. I traveled around the world nonstop for about 9 months. I just kept going around the world. And
Well, you
it was
still are. You
yeah,
still
I still
are.
am.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, let's not kid ourselves. And that, I mean, the stories too of the traveling around the world. What I love though is that knowing more about that really is a foundation for the global work you're doing now with social change and in mobile and emerging markets. So take us to the amazing brilliance of what you're doing now, because I want to learn more about this. I think it's cutting edge of what's going on.
well, yeah, and since I came literally from what would say the content business or the magazine publishing business, and then the internet, everything was content. And so after I sold Living Abroad, I did a couple of other things. And one day I woke up and I thought, well, I don't want to start another company, just another company just to make money. I mean, I kind of know how to do that, I guess, right? I was in real estate for a little while. And so I thought, the world was changing. It was the financial crisis time. And there was a lot of greed and no one was taking accountability. And there was a lot of turmoil. I mean, we have a lot of turmoil now, but
Yeah.
we had financial turmoil then. And I thought, well, what can I do with my background and knowledge that would really help people get a leg up, And again, going back to my own roots, all I ever wanted was somebody to give me the ball. There's that funny phrase. They go, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. Just show me how to do it and I will do it. I will go from there. Just show me how to turn the switch on and then I'll figure out the rest. It's basically called opportunity, right? Just give
Yeah.
somebody the opportunity and the access So what I wound up doing, I guess, is I started a nonprofit called the Foundation for Social Change. And the funny part about this is I started not knowing that the word foundation, when you use a nonprofit, it's called the Foundation for Social Change, usually means you gave away money, you didn't give money. But I wasn't doing that. I was trying to raise money so that I could do programming and help people. And anyway, the Foundation for Social Change wound up focusing on educating women and girls in poverty on life and business skills. And I did a lot of research. It was pretty amazing that there were, hundreds and hundreds of education programs around the world funded by World Bank and, corporations helping girls and women. And none of them basically tied the two elements together, meaning life skills, which would be decision making, problem solving, critical thinking, empathy, with business skills, right? You either
Wow.
had one or the other. You had
Yeah.
health. And so we combined the two, put a curriculum together, got some funding, and then launched it in Colombia with the singer Shakira, the very famous singer, popular Latin singer, in her schools that she supported in Colombia. And that changed my life. Having done that really changed my life because you saw the hunger and the absorption of doing a training program for young girls, and then the impact it had on them, and then the impact it had on their families and their communities. It was crazy. 200 girls totally changed the community.
Oh, I can't even
Yeah.
imagine what that was like. And, I know you mentioned to me Shakira, and you said, if everyone knew the heart she has to give back, you said it's been just a joy and a privilege when you worked with her to see her.
She's the ultimate do-gooder, because when I got into the nonprofit space, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of celebrities, loads of them. And, after a few, I can tell you who they are, but they don't do anything. They just advocate stuff. They tell you how bad, human trafficking is or how bad something is, but they don't put their money where their mouth is. And they don't actually do any programming, where Shakira and her organization, been around for 20 years. They are really doing the work on the ground organically every single day. And it was mind blowing, I think, because even though we went into a lot of these very poor places in Colombia, you know, as I used to say to my colleagues, I get to go home, but these kids and these parents stay there. I mean, they're there every day. So, you know, it was humbling is not the right word, but it was an eye opener on what you can do with very good, simple, but quality content that people just want, that they'll just take it. And they're not poor in their minds, right? They're not poor in their minds. They just want access. It goes to the give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball.
Well, and you just pegged something as I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, you're right. They're not poor in their minds at all. And they're hungry and they're thirsty. And it's sometimes just refreshing for us to realize it's being humbled again, as I think about how much we take for granted. And to think that it's as simple as the knowledge and the empowerment you gave them in a nugget of training that we would some of us just walk right past, right? We take so much for granted.
And I think the other thing that was real bugaboo for me personally is they, and you know, you want to talk about they and them, but the reality is they look just like us. You know, they're not what they call the base of the pyramid people who are barely living on $2 a day. That's not the crowd that we focused on. We focused on the group of people, which is really where I came from, I would say, is they're, you know, right hovering around the poverty line. So, you know, they're not really on the bottom, but they're sort of hovering, and maybe a bad break will put them at the bottom. But all they're asking for is give me more so I can improve my life. And so I decided really that I wanted to help those people, because the base of the pyramid folks, the people that are the poorest in the world, are really just getting basic needs. But this is the crowd that maybe has some education, has a place to live, is families, you know, is working. What can you do for them to give them a leg up? And that's really what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that takes us, you know, what you've been doing now. You have a company, ChangeCorp, and what has really been instrumental globally in equipping. I mean, you created a whole app. And, you know, and I always say this to you, I'm like, tell me more about what it means, mobile and emerging markets, because you are in demand right now. Louise is going all over the world. She's being asked to come speak. So just remember, I'll let you know how to get in touch with her at the end of this, because she's got an expertise and a niche, because you've been at the helm of this. So take us to what this is all about right now, Louise, and what this really means.
Yeah, so ChangeCorp came out of the Foundation for Social Change. ChangeCorp is a for-profit company. It's what would call a social enterprise. And our complete goal is to educate people through the use of mobile phones. And that means by providing them valuable content, educational content. But it's not a course. It's sort of like, okay, I want to start a business. You know, it's like how do you do this and how do you do that? Now, you know, there's 5 billion people that have phones in the world, and they have various types of phones. They have, you know, the simple basic phone all the way up to the smartphone. And in emerging markets, developing countries, you know, 8 out of every 10 smartphones is being sold in these countries because they're being sold inexpensively. So the fact is that more and more and more people will be having phones. So how do they access content that is relevant to them and their literacy level, where they live, is in the language in which they understand. It's not just an app that they download that everybody, you know, all the English speakers have, and provides them with something that they can get to the next level. So we saw the impact in Colombia. We saw the impact in Pakistan and some of the other countries that we did our live training. And we thought, wow, you know, with mobile, we can reach a lot more people, put the content on the mobile phone, put it in an organized fashion so that people can download the information very easily. It doesn't cost them a lot, if anything at all. And then give them a place to go where they can find resources. And how do I manage my money? How do I start a business? How do I be a woman that can manage both family and work life? How do I become a better parent? So we created products around these types of content and topics. And it's been amazing. I mean, we work with Facebook, and you know, we have about 1 million users around the world in 72 countries, 27 languages, and it's pretty crazy. We did that all within about a couple of years. It's wild.
It is wild, but it tells you that there's a need, and you found a way to create a solution for a need. And it goes back to what we were just saying like 10 minutes ago. It's about being, when in Rome, act like you're in Rome, right? And be ready to treat them. And so you're creating ways to give people what they need through the lens and the understanding that they need to understand it, right? It's pointless if we don't.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, it goes to the point of, most of the content or most of the things that we all work on mobile is like Facebook, Twitter. Okay, those are developed world and developing world sort of services and apps. But those are what they call user generated, and meaning that you and I populate the content, right? We put up our own content. But there's still a swath in the population in the world that says, I still need learning content. I still want to know how to manage money. I may only make $1,000 a month, but I still want to know how to manage it.
Exactly.
And that is what we do. We fill that void of, somewhere between the cool app, Twitter, and whatever, to this service that says I can get it in my own language and in my own literacy level so I can understand it, absorb it, and then hopefully improve my life.
It's no wonder Facebook loves it. They're like, yeah. You're like, okay, how fast can they have it? How fast can you be partnering with them? Well, this is just fascinating, and it's very cutting edge. And I think what I love about this time with you is it's really educational. It's kind of an awareness, right? It's like you need awareness first and then education. And just for us to be aware of what's going on out there, and that people like Louise and what you're doing, Louise. I would love to flip though and go and just have you on a personal side of life, thinking about all that you've done professionally. Was there any, and I know the listeners love to hear this because I love to celebrate people that are doing remarkable things, but also we're human. Has there been anything that, even going back to your childhood, I don't know, it could be recently, it could be childhood. Was there any place in your life that was truly maybe really pivotal, as far as maybe it was extreme adversity that you faced that was just kind of like, wow, I've conquered this, I got through it. Is there any pivotal moment that you would say you just top of mind go back to that has a lot to do with who you are today and how you're showing up in this world?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. That's a very good question. I think that, like so many people in the world, I didn't have confidence. And I used to look at a lot of other people thinking they had the confidence, because we didn't have any money. I didn't have the best clothes. I wasn't the prettiest. Certainly wasn't the tallest. And, and you just sort of, you kind of slug it out. You think, how in the world can I get through? But I remember thinking how I think I can get through because no one's really paying attention to me. And, we live in a world, especially today, where, everybody's a celebrity. But again, when I was growing up, the smartest kids were the rich kids, were the, whatever. I just think that when I got into New York City and started working, where I felt home when I came to New York. I grew up here, but then I went to school out of state. And when I got back into Manhattan, I felt like I belonged to a tribe where anything was possible. Nobody thought you couldn't do something, and nobody cared where you came from. They cared where you were going. So I feel that, if I had to look at one place, I'm not sure if that would have happened had I not lived in New York, had I not started my career in New York, where people started to believe in me, they started to see me, they started to take me under their wing, and I felt acceptance. And that was a big deal. And that acceptance, of course, gave me confidence. And that was, and then I had some great mentors. We didn't call them mentors then, we just called them people that kind of took us under their wing. Yeah. But they were wonderful mentors. And the other thing I did is I watched people, thinking that I didn't know anything. I figured, well, what can I contribute to the world? I might as well just watch everybody else. And I would watch people and how they interacted. And I thought, well, I like what that guy does. And I like what that gal does. And I sort of cherry picked some of the best parts of them. And and then you just feel like, oh, okay, well, I could do that, and
then you do. And, I think by just having your eyes open and looking, I love that, because I think when I go back to childhood, I think there was times even in those tough times of puberty and middle school and high school, like being the fat one that was so shy and always looking down. I started looking at the people that seemed like they were the popular ones, and I'm like, what are they doing? Why are they so happy? Right. And it's like, you start to watch and see in other people, and it's like, what do we have to lose? And, it takes us back to, and I have to say, I wish we had the time, but you guys, for everybody listening, and I'm going to have Louise back, because there's another whole side to her that we've spent numerous times. And I always would laugh. And I looked at you one day and I said, Louise, please, you have to do stand up. And you said, I used to in college, didn't you? You
Right,
said,
yes. Yeah.
it's the can of Lysol. So I'm going to leave everybody with this before we wrap it up. But just know that she's been known to be caught at security because of her can of Lysol. She would carry around with her everywhere you would go around the world, right?
Oh, yeah, because of the germs that are around the world that I didn't want to carry with me. But Lysol, and people thought I was nuts, but it kills 99.9% of all germs. And it's just, with all the people you come in contact with and and I sound like a germaphobe, but I'll tell you, it's like a security blanket for me when I whip it out. So
I just love it. I'm still having some great visuals. And as I thank you so much, when you think about, and I know I love the line that you said at the beginning, your mother's, just you can't fall off the floor. Is there any other advice if you were to go back in 30 seconds and give your 25-year-old self a nugget of wisdom, any advice, what would that be other than you can't fall off the floor? Because I love that one.
Yeah. I think it's something I've lived by. There are two bits. One is, it's a hokey phrase, but when you reach for the stars, you always land higher. Number one. And number two, you just throw spaghetti at the wall, and why not? It's being fearless, it's being this, but it's hard not to be fearful. But I think you just let it rip and, hope for the best. And I think that to me is, I still do that and be a student of life and learning. I'm still learning. I love to learn. I mean, I started a mobile technology business very late in life, and I've become an expert at it somewhat by default. So learning just, what the hell and what the heck? I mean, why not? Oh. It's, there's nobody to tell you otherwise. And I think that's key.
Oh, I love that. Why not? Well, I know that people are going to want to know more about you. If they want to reach out to you for many reasons, they want to learn more about your foundation, more about ChangeCorp, mobile and emerging markets. Louise, she's an expert at this. She's going all over the world to speak on it. If you want to reach out to her, to have her speak for your organization, whatever you're doing. But Louise, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would just either go on Facebook, but, Louise.Guido, believe it or not, that's my Facebook name. And you can always direct message me because I'm pretty open on there. Or if you want to send me an email, it's, it would be info@change-corp.com, info@change-corp.com. And that would be ChangeCorp, but -corp.
Love it. Thank you. And we'll have that, and we'll put that in the email when we launch this and go live. And I just can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
You're brilliant. You're amazing. And you're so down to earth. And that's what we love about you. So thank you, my friend.
All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.